Sunday Pilot here on Sim Sunday, and this is my first port-over video taken from the very first project that I worked on as part of Sim Time back in August 2020. And this video covers a flight I made on board a British Airways Airbus A320 of Aerosoft from London Heathrow to Turin. It's Graham with the first of my Sim Time series here on Living the Dream. It's another wet Sunday in August 2020, and for me there's no better way to spend a wet Sunday afternoon than holed up in the cupboard in what I call an office here at home on P3Dv4.5, my flight simulator. And today you can see that I'm at London Heathrow International Airport Terminal 5 and the A gates in a British Airways Airbus A320 from Aerosoft. Today's plan is to fly from here in London Heathrow to Turin in northern Italy. So first it is time to get into SimBrief and set up the flight plan from Heathrow down to Turin. The plan today is to take on 100 passengers and around 5 tons of baggage and cargo. Both ATIS in Prepared and SimBrief are telling me that I will be departing from runway 27 right, the northerly of the two westerly runways here at Heathrow. However, I know that's probably not going to be correct because the scenery I'm using is London Heathrow from UK 2000, and I'm pretty darn sure that the AFCAD will only allow me to depart westerly on 27 left. I'll just have to wait and see what happens when I've pushed back, pointing in the direction of 27 right in the hope that Flight Sim will send me towards that very runway. And finally, before checking the route down to Turin today here in SimBrief, I do want to double check that I'm in kilograms and not pounds, because today I'm flying the Airbus A320. And this flight plan is absolutely fine for my purposes in the flight down to Turin this morning, departing west out of London Heathrow, turning left towards Brighton across the English Channel through France, heading towards Geneva in Switzerland, and finally across the Alps into Turin. So the last thing I need to do in SimBrief is download the flight plan into Prepared and also Aerosoft, ensuring both the flight simulator, ATC, and of course Aerosoft know that I'm on the same plan. Back in the flight deck of this Aerosoft Airbus A320, just quickly looking around to check that everything is looking normal. And my first job is to load the flight plan into Prepared, ensuring that ATC keeps me on the right track. And then, always the big job before any flight is to program the flight management computer, the FMC. I love the way that Aerosoft has provided these two FMCs, ensuring that I can get all of the right information keyed into the aircraft before departing. After checking SimBrief again, inputting 100 passengers, 5 metric tons of cargo, and my block fuel, it is time to head back to the main FMC to set up the inertial reference system. Once we have a good GPS signal, it is time to tell the flight management computer where we're coming from and where we're going today, being e.g. LAL London Heathrow through to LIMF Turin. And because I've already downloaded this route from SimBrief, it is very simple to just click Insert and your flight plan gets loaded straight into the FMC. After popping in a fictitious flight number, I just use the same one every time, and then I insert cost index 30. I've no idea if this is correct for British Airways, but I just use it anyway before putting in my flight level, which is 350 today, 35,000 feet en route down to Turin. I've set flaps at 2, and from the flight management computer that tends to give me a plus 0.8 on the trim setting. And then a quick glance at the MFD, I can tell that my front left door and my 2 right cargo doors are still open. Next I tell GSX that it's time to board, which automatically starts sending the baggage carts and the passengers towards the aircraft. I typically instruct GSX to complete the boarding process while I'm inputting into the FMC. That process normally takes 10 to 15 minutes before each flight, and during that process the boarding can be completed. And back in the flight deck you can hear the passengers boarding behind me. And finally, before completing the FMC input, I do like to check off the flight log or the navigation log from Prepared itself and make sure that it is totally married to the FMC in Aerosoft. With the baggage vehicles out of the way, it is time to close the cargo doors. Before asking for clearance and startup, it's time to make sure the pumps are ready to pump fuel to those engines. And it's also around this time I tend to start the APU. Please don't judge me folks, because I'm not a professional pilot. This is a game really to me, and I don't follow any set procedures. Only when the APU is up and available can I disconnect the ground power. So while I'm waiting for the APU to spool up, it's time to ask ATC for clearance. And this is my next apology folks, because I use ATC on a separate speaker system. And yes, with this being my very first sim time, I didn't realise that my screen capture wouldn't capture the ATC sounds. I promise I will get ATC on future videos going forward. However, moving on with the flight, with the APU now up and running, it is time to disconnect the ground power unit and ask for pushback clearance.
Captain, the cabin is secure, all passengers are aboard.
Right, double checking all of my doors. Cargo doors, exit doors, all doors are closed. It is time to double check that the APU is running, which of course I know it is, and then to set for engines, because I'm going to be ready to start up very shortly. And with the jet bridge pulling back, it will be time to ask for pushback and start up again using GSX. And again folks, I do apologise, there is no ATC on this video.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback. Locking gear. Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will. Set parking brakes. Waiting your confirmation for good engine start. Unlocking gear. Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
And this is where the runway reality sets in, because it is absolutely clear that ATC are actually going to be directing me to runway 27 left instead of 27 right, which is what ATC and the sim were advising no less than 15 minutes earlier.
Left is clear, right is clear.
And just passing the British Airways 777-200 at the B gates here at Terminal 5, it does remind me that next week I plan to record a video from Gatwick to St Lucia in the very British Airways 777-200, so watch out for that video as part of our St Lucia 2020 series. And as I make my way slowly towards runway 27 left here at London Heathrow, you can see traffic taking off on 27 left and traffic landing on 27 right. UK 2000 scenery is absolutely fantastic, folks. And as you can see, even the ultimate traffic A380 from Emirates and Qantas are at the correct gates. And even as we pass the Queen's Terminal, Terminal 2, you can see an Aer Lingus A320 perfectly placed here at London Heathrow Airport by UK 2000. I think the British Airways aircraft in front is an A319 en route to Aberdeen. And here's another quirk of ultimate traffic with the British Airways A321 sneaking in behind that A319 bound for Aberdeen. So I'm going to have to wait here, folks, for the A319 and the A321 even to depart before I head en route to Turin. It was at this point, as I approached the runway 27 left here at Heathrow, that I remembered that I had to change my departure runway on the FMC. Because remember, I'd programmed 27 right at the beginning, and actually we were departing on 27 left. That would have been embarrassing. If you're wondering, folks, the cabin announcement is a feature of Aerosoft.
On runway 27 left.
And the RAS system is also a feature of the Aerosoft Airbus fleet, but I also decided to use the discount code to buy it so that this RAS feature was available on all of the aircraft that I fly unprepared. Before any of you flight sim experts start giving off that I'm taking off at rather a steep angle, I know with only 100 passengers this baby is very light and it wanted to get airborne in next to no time. So departing west out of London Heathrow, the first thing you see is Bedfont Lakes and then the metropolis of Slough. Yeah, I know, folks, Slough isn't that great. Made famous, of course, by The Office, or should I say the British version of The Office. Departing Heathrow to the south, it isn't long before you're over the south coast of England around the Brighton area en route across the Channel. And as we approach our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, it's time to show you my next favourite feature here on the Aerosoft Airbus.
I have some drink for you, Captain. Here you are.
With my coffee finished and the tray table put away, it is time to sit back, relax and enjoy the cruise down to Turin. And jumping forward in this video, we're over Lake Geneva, heading towards the Alps. And our initial approach to Turin vectoring towards runway 36. And time to program the FMC with the approach phase of the flight into Turin runway 36, including the ILS, wind, weather and temperature. And at 26 miles out from Turin, my MFD is already picking up the ILS. And for those of you wondering, the clouds in my simulator are being provided by Active Sky and Active Sky Cloud Art. And on today's flight, like 90% of my flights, I'm using a live weather, downloaded every 10 to 15 minutes, direct from the internet and Active Sky servers. At 21 miles out, at 4,000 feet, the ILS is starting to be picked up at Turin now, directing me onto the final approach path. I have actually been to Turin before, but that was during a school skiing trip in 1982. And on that first and very real trip to Turin, I flew in a Britannia Boeing 737-200. Back on our virtual flight into Turin, it's time to drop the landing gear. With the autopilot disengaged, this is where it gets embarrassing because the landing from here on in is all down to me.
Minimum 200. $100. 50. 40. 30. Retard. 10. 5.
Long landing. Long landing. $1,000.
As I taxi to the gate here at Turin while cleaning up the aircraft, I want to make it absolutely clear. As you can see, folks, I am no pilot. Flight simming for me is a hobby. It is fun. It is something I enjoy most weekends. There are plenty of videos on YouTube made by pilots and much better flight simmers than me that will give you instruction and tell you what to do, what buttons to press, and all of the various features you should be using that I'm clearly not. As a weekend amateur, unprepared, 3D version 4.5. My goal for this video is therefore just to show you what is possible with a PC, some software and a joystick. As I was shutting down this Aerosoft Airbus A320, it was now that I realised the scenery I was using for Turin was out of date and was not GSX compatible. I was therefore unable to move the jetway to the aircraft, so I had to order up stairs instead to complete the onboarding process via GSX. I've been playing around with flight sims since the mid-80s. However, it wasn't until 1999 when I bought my first gaming computer and a copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator 98 that I started taking this game seriously. As you can see, folks, I don't really take it seriously at all. My flight sim of choice for the last 2 years has been Prepared 3D version 4. But I've only been using GSX for the last 6 months and I have no idea why I didn't purchase it earlier. I've also only been flying the Aerosoft Airbus Professional for the last 8 months and I have to admit I'm really loving this fantastic automated aircraft. And in my next video I'll take you en route from here in Turin to Madrid, the capital city of Spain, on board the PDMG 737 NXU, an aircraft that I only purchased for flight sim less than 6 weeks ago. Until then, thank you for watching.